Les. Update just in Hello, welcome to the weekly voice chat for the Men's Human Rights Discord server. We are the semi-official server of the Men's Rights subreddit. We don't really have a topic this week. We apologize for that. We were a little late in getting organized. So we're just going to kind of have a free talk and just kind of see how it goes. Ma, the owner of this server, was banned from Reddit for posting about the rate of false accusations of sexual assault versus malicious accusations of sexual assault. So that's some news we have regarding the Manosphere. Ma, I was happy to see how many people voted that. The fact that someone would post a thread at all about you, then it got like 120 upvotes. That was good to see. You made a big impact there.
Yeah, I was kind of touched, to be honest. Kind of warms the heart that people noticed and cared about that. And I was kind of surprised. I mean, it was surprising enough when I'd run into somebody on Reddit when I was actually on there, and they'd go, "Oh, hello, I know you." Yeah, it was. It was very touching that they posted that, and so many people were commiserating and stuff like that. But Reddit accounts come and go, I guess, and we'll have to see if old Muskie buys Reddit next and clears it up. It'd be quite nice if he did, but obviously we've got enough job clearing up Twitter, I think. But I noticed that Blue has been banned multiple times as well, and it's just kind of a thing that happens on Reddit. Is you go around and you post an inconvenient fact in an inconvenient sub, and a great number of them will just ban you outright without any kind of conversation. And
my original
yeah.
My original account, Blue Orange 22, which was up to 100,000 karma. Not that I'm trying to brag about karma, but the point is, it was an active account, and it was an account that I used seriously. Never engaged in any kind of hate speech. I very rarely engaged even in profanity, and I started getting upvoted and even gilded for posting pro MRA content in the default subs. Default subs meaning the main subs, and other mainstream large subs around Reddit. And one day banned, no reason given, just banned. I think it's because MRA was starting to get 1,000, 2,000 upvotes for pro MRA comments in Ask Reddit, or for example, wherever it was, and they couldn't have that. They removed me. Don't remove, if you have an MRA who makes the movement look bad, I think they let that person hang around a lot longer.
Yeah, I think that these subs are, like, a lot of people in them are actually starting to realize that they are being shielded, because honestly the internet is a big place, and even if you create an echo chamber, you don't stop those same people from going to other places and encountering other people who disagree with them. As long as people stay in their echo chambers, you've got them. But as soon as they go out of them, you're screwed. And I have a feeling that Twitter being turned is another of those markers that show we are moving towards a position where people can talk a lot more freely on the internet again, which is how it used to be before Reddit bans and Twitter bans became a big thing.
As I said something about the whole Musk buying Twitter. I don't think Musk's gonna do anything about it. I probably not gonna make any major changes that'll benefit us particularly, but I don't know. Who knows? I don't think much is gonna happen though.
Yeah, I don't really look for a big abrupt change, regardless of who's buying which platform. The the inertia of the mob is very hard to move, and generally speaking, the movement comes kind of from the bottom up. I don't think any drastic changes of policy or drastic changes of ownership are overnight gonna correct anything that's wrong. Hopefully it just won't, damage anything that's doing fairly well. So
Honestly, I take a more middle road approach in that I know that this isn't going to shift the Proudmans and the other monsters on Twitter, but what it is going to do is quite probably allow a lot of the people on our side who keep being banned to have accounts and obtain followers and speak a lot more freely, and to engage with these people a lot more directly, breaking them out, breaking their not the the shills like Proudman, who are very much I hate to make accusations, but she's definitely not behaving in an honest and good faith kind of way, and having the ability to engage with all of these people across all of these platforms, and to without a millstone around our neck would be great. And to just have one where we can spread our message without being nerfed constantly is going to be a huge thing. I think you underestimate how much how much of a benefit it can be to just stop stealing somebody's inertia, which is what they're doing. And if we can use this and get up enough inertia, I think we can take the internet, because I think that this is going to become a platform where it will be a refuge away from the censorship of Reddit and places like that, where you can hold an opinion without it being like a online death sentence, basically, where your account is simply terminated and you're shut up. Right. Which means that a lot more varied and nuanced voices are going to be allowed to speak, which means that the more extreme voices are going to sound an awful lot more extreme. People forget that the entire reason that Reddit and Twitter have become so extreme is because there have been no moderate voices allowed, like people like us, because we just get banned. So without us on there, all they hear is each other, and all each other are doing is egging each other on to greater and greater heights of horribleness. And honestly, I think he is coming in with a fire and a fury, because he's fired the entire executive staff, as from what I've heard. He's at least fired the key players.
Most of them,
and he's firing a good percentage of the people in the company, and he seems to be having an ideological purge, essentially, and getting rid of all the extreme people in the company in order to make it more moderate. At least I hope he's making it more moderate. From what I've heard of what he says, he's making it more moderate. This could.
I think I believe that. I mean, that it's to his benefit to make Twitter, much less toxic than it is now, and much more moderate, and much more open. Like I said, the other pin, though, underneath all this is, the best possible outcome. People like us don't get banned anymore, right? And people like us start getting a voice that, a wider audience is at least willing to listen to, and not try to shut down. And then the onus is on us, right? to make sure we're saying that which is reasonable and honest and, worthy of putting out there. That then it'll all be on us, which is fine. I mean, it was either one or the other, but if that happens, in a reasonable amount of time, then then we have to take responsibility and avoid making the mistakes that got us where we are right now. I look around the extremosphere, in every corner, and none of those people care about anything, right? I mean, they really don't care. Maybe they're just black pilled to the point where they believe nothing they do matters. And if they get a chance, they will be just as happy to take advantage of moderation and banning policies as we are. And one thing that I know is that, zany antics really get a lot of attention, regardless of where they come from. People like to watch, crazy out of hand stuff. And, it's like I would need evidence that there's still a place for somebody like me in all of that. Because, right now I'm not convinced. It's like I take a wait and see attitude. But as of this date in 2022, you wouldn't catch me dead on Twitter anyway. I just don't. It's a toilet, and if they can clean it out and make it presentable, I'll reconsider, but not before then. I don't know. That's just me.
Not to, I mean, I agree that Twitter is awful, but it is the medium in which people use at whole. So if you want to be heard by as many people as possible, Twitter is one of those platforms you kind of just have to be on. But I got a story. Apparently there was a mass. This is nothing really to do with men's rights, but it's a pretty massive story. I thought I should maybe break it here if people haven't seen it. But there are over 146 people dead in South Korea after there was a stampede at a Halloween event. That just happened minutes ago.
What did you say? Sorry, Blue. I didn't catch some of it.
Oh,
There was a stampede a few minutes ago.
Yeah, it was South Korea. I just posted the link to it in the text channel. 150 are dead, and the count is still going up because there was a stampede. Ah, how did that happen? It's a massive.
Stampedes can happen in packed places, unfortunately.
But I see. I never understand. I understand if it's a stampede, if people are running away from something, but I mean, surely once it starts to happen, if they're not running away from anything, once people can see, oh man, people are falling down and people are tripping up, they would stop moving.
Not
Well,
necessarily.
unfortunately, crowds have inertia. I've been in a packed square, like elbow to elbow, can't barely move. And when a crowd like that moves, you have to go with it or you get dragged under. So everyone is moving because everyone else is moving.
Yeah.
People can't see things behind them. They're catching little glimpses. They don't really know what's going on. Everyone is panicked. Everyone's screaming. You just want to get out of there, and so you run away. And while you're running away, you might trip and stumble over somebody. And then the next person might knock into them even more and they might go down. And then the next person just sort of stumbles over them, and the next person steps on them, not being able to see their own feet, and the next person, and you just end up with somebody who's trampled without any individual person really participating in a cognitive way, in a way that's, where they really understand what just happened. And they might feel the person underneath them, but they might not even notice it because it's such a panic situation. So they're not focused on what they feel underneath them, what they see underneath them. They're just focused on where they're going. It's like laser focused.
You can be quite sure alcohol was a factor too.
It often is. It was, I don't know about Hillsborough, but Hillsborough was, they kept packing people in, and they packed even more people in, and they kept packing them in, and nobody was keeping count, and they just ended up letting in like twice as many, 3 times as many people as they ought to have. And I think one of the stands collapsed under people pushing them towards the edge. I don't really remember, but it was just like, you pack enough people into that sort of situation, and people will start running away just to get away from the crush.
Yeah. Blue, you had mentioned the utility of platforms like Twitter, especially Twitter, for those that want to be heard. As you say, if you want to be heard, that's where most people are listening. And of course, me being me, the first thing I'm going to ask is, in that environment and under those conditions, how important is it that I be heard? I don't want people listening to me, who don't have a clear and serious interest in what I have to say. I don't do any of this, and I never have, for entertainment purposes. And right now, all too often, what I hear from people talking about Twitter, even in the face of genuine news reports like this, is that it's, sort of a guilty pleasure, a source of schadenfreude and groupthink. And as I say, I might be better heard in a place like that, but to what end? What will that accomplish for me and us? I want, for the kind of people that who just can't get enough of Twitter, I want for them to be at a point in their in their travels and in their life where they just can't stand being that way anymore. It hurts too bad. And it's too miserable, because until then, why should they listen to me? And B, if they do, it sounds like that means I'm contributing to their unhealthy obsession. I genuinely want to be heard, but only under the conditions that I be, heard in order to be understood, and in order to relieve those people of their, self-imposed exile from reason. If it's not going to be that, then, anybody who needs to hear from me knows where to find me. And if those people want to hear what I have to say, they're going to have to come over here where I am. Because I'm not going over there. If they can clean it up and make it, make it a source of reason and order and decency, I'll be happy to. If it's not that, I'm too intolerant of sleaze, I guess. Oh, I don't know.
I don't think that's going away anytime soon anywhere. And the older I'm getting, I'm starting to sound like a cynic, but the older I'm getting, and I think about politics today, and then I reflect upon history and how the history of human politics has always been rife with warfare and corruption and hate. It's always been the norm. You kind of begin to lose hope. I mean, is it possible to get to the quote unquote promised land? Like, are we ever going to actually make progress? Like, are we going to see real meaningful progress ever for the next
See,
100
now,
years?
now you're talking my language, because that's a real question, you know. And it definitely, um, indicates the kind of humility that understands that, any one of us is just as capable of being destructive and sleazy and, as like I say, full of Schadenfreude as anybody else, right? And it's never a bad idea to point that out as publicly and as loudly as possible. But to answer your question, I'm at a point in my life where, I'm okay either way, right? I will either pass away from this world quietly, without being heard, or I will pass out of this world leaving something behind people can use. But either way, the one thing common in all of it is I'm not getting out of this alive, you know, and like I said, it's more important to me for me to understand, that especially nowadays, I can uh, I can be, unreasoning, and I can fall victim to people's desire to have me entertain them, with zany antics. It's just that I'm not going to do it. If my choices are either do that or be quiet, I'll be quiet. And if my choices are other, then I'll need to be shown that the reason there's a third option is because the other two are no longer tolerable to anybody, or at least not very many people. But right now, everybody loves it. They do. And it's like, then looks like I'm going to die quiet.
I
Prove me wrong.
I take the stance that the current feminist wave is dying off, and they're losing momentum. They're cracking under the eye of public scrutiny, and all of their misdoings are being laid bare by the internet. I think that this means for the next 10 years, starting roughly with the Depp trial and its big push on the pendulum, which is, I think, the moment that people started noticing the pendulum was swinging back. I mean, I was saying before I even got banned on Reddit that the pendulum is swinging back towards us and nobody's noticed yet. Well, now people have noticed, and what we need to do is keep pushing the pendulum. And then when it gets to the middle, we need to stop. We need to stop the pendulum, and we need to say, here is where the Overton window stays. We are going to have a reasonable conversation. We are going to talk about men's issues and women's issues and everyone's issues, and we're going to settle this and make sure that everyone's heard and everyone has equality. Because if we don't, you're going to get reverse feminists, basically male versions of feminists. Well, not feminists, but like men who use the tactics feminists use for men, and they will be gross and horrible, and the feminists will use them to come back swinging in another 10 years and absolutely destroy us and everything we work for, which is the real danger. It's not that we won't win, it's that we will be heard. The problem is that when the feminists come back,
Right.
when the new generation that they've trained to be absolutely insane starts on their latest whatever insane thing that they pick up on in the next 10 years, that instantly becomes the thing that everyone has to kowtow to and that everyone has to follow along with, and if you don't, you lose your job. You aren't allowed to use payment processing systems. You aren't allowed to do this and that. You're basically shut out of society. So we need to stop whatever that thing is before it gets started by educating the new generation as much as possible in the time we have. And that time is approximately 10 years, give or take. This is essentially running on the same swing back and forth that we've seen before. And the issue is also that the feminists have trained like college graduates and people like that who are then going to go back into the college system in a couple of decades and be a new voice of lunacy that's going to start the whole thing again. This is a problem of universities. They are hotbeds of extremism, and we've seen this before. Like this has been an ongoing thing since probably before the 70s. But people in universities are absolutely nuts, and they keep trying to push communism, and they keep trying to push feminism, and weird stuff that doesn't make any sense, and they'll do it as hard as they can, and they'll treat it like it's their narrative. It's not anything real. They know it's not real, but they'll push it because it's useful, and they'll push it and they'll push it, and the next generation will believe it.
I think part of the problem is I realize that people like to fight. Democrats love, on some level, Donald Trump because nothing connects and unites people more than a shared complaint, a common source of anger. And it's becoming it's not because I think it has been forever. It's recreational, almost. We there's a part of us that enjoys the tribalism, that enjoys the fight, that enjoys hating someone and having someone to hate and having someone to blame. And people, I see people on Twitter who scroll down their profile. These people are spending 12, 13, 14 hours a day on Twitter doing nothing but making posts about how bad Trump is or how bad Biden is. And that's their life. I wonder if that's their job. But when you say when we get to when the pendulum reaches the middle, you say stop. Okay, this is a good place to be. The problem is getting people to agree on where the middle is.
Well, I think that a good idea of where the middle is would be, let's see, 2006 is a good idea of where the middle is. So that's where we were when we were, like, equality seemed to be on the upswing. Everything seemed to be going great. We were essentially like, we were increasing equality, people were becoming okay with gay people and so on and so forth. And if we'd just continued on that sort of track, that sort of 2006 to about 2014, I think, that sort of era, if we had kept on at that and we hadn't let the slow creep of the feminist voices in, we would be in a much better society, I think. So, we keep, the thing is that people have become so tribalistic now because of the internet and Twitter and things like that, that they have essentially gone off the rails, and they've gone off they think that what they're doing is progressive, when actually what they're doing is destructive and is anti-progressive, and is in fact encouraging racism and homophobia and all this sort of stuff. And they are creating it, but they think that they are solving it. And when they see more homophobia around them, they just think that that's the way the world is. And they think that these people are just loud voices who are throughout society, and society has just always been like this, and there's never been a time when it was okay to be like this. Sorry, when it was okay to talk about things and stuff like that without shouting at each other. Just shouting at each other is just their life. Like, this was something that started back in the time period I mentioned, but it was concealed on little forums and things like that. It was when it exploded onto Twitter and became part of your parents' life, and it became part of your siblings' life, and it became like something that everybody did. That's when it became a real problem, I think. And it's that what happens is they get this burst of anxiety when they see somebody disagreeing with them, and then they rush in to slam that person down, and they get a huge rush of self-satisfaction, and they feel better, and they're skipping around, and they feel great. And then the reply comes, and there's that anxiety again, and it's, oh no. But then they've got this block button so that they can slam them again, and then they can say, you don't get to talk, and block them out. And that just became the way that people communicated, and it's horrifying that it's become that way. But we need to undo that. I mean, I think the way the block button is on Twitter is specifically designed to let somebody get the last word in, and then just make sure the other person can't respond. And I think that is incredibly toxic. I think it should be that you just can't see their tweets anymore, but they can tweet as much as they like.
Well, that's something. You mentioned what the, I guess, watershed moment for equality was 2006.
Well, not the year specifically, but like 2006 to 2014, before this whole thing. I mean, basically it was simmering under the surface at that point. But if we had pushed past that, I mean, back in that era, this is the era when people who would be absolutely insane woke ideologues now, like these papers like the Washington Post and stuff like that, were publishing tentatively pro-MRA pieces and stuff that was quite even-handed and wasn't insane. This is what I'm basing this on, essentially. And the public discourse was sort of opening up to a variety of different things, but then it just all sort of came to a crashing halt a bit later on. But honestly, I may be wrong. You are all free to disagree with me and say that no, that time was awful and it was going off the rails a lot more than you realise and stuff like that. But I mean, it may just be nostalgia on my part, but I think that back during that time we had a lot more people who were willing to listen. This was before I think we really got super demonized. It was before anyone really knew who we were. But I do think that if we had gone into this period of time with that kind of attitude, people would have opened up a lot more to listening to us. And but obviously the ideologues wouldn't let that happen, because like the feminists and so on, they took to the media and they saw us rising, and they were like, no, we can't have this goes against the narrative, and so they shot us down with these accusations of being far right and so on. But I think that I'm absolutely certain of it, having gone through so many news articles, that there was a period where the media was starting to open up to men's issues, and then just all came crashing down.
Yeah. Really, I think that wasn't a matter of that time period being worse than what you're imagining or what you're remembering. I think it probably was at least that hopeful. But, the other thing I remember about it, and I don't remember much, remember that was I had a lot going on at that time myself. But, from what I recall, the problem was not that things were really terrible. It's more that, those same influences were really encouraging complacency. You know what I mean? We were basically being put to sleep, and just assured that everything was okay. And in the meantime, they were generating all these institutional changes in education and public policy and higher education, and not just in places like U.S. and Canada, is over there where you're at too, but it was being done quietly, it was being done behind the curtain, so to speak. There was very little open discussion or open examination of exactly, what was going on in colleges, for example, even after the Dear Colleague letter in America and all the corresponding policy changes and bureaucratic changes in colleges around that time. At least especially in U.S. and Canada, one of the side effects of all of that was, the economic crash of 2008, right? Which kind of got everybody's attention. That the only crisis to focus on is the economy. And like I said, a lot of shenanigans happened during that time, right? And nobody noticed it till it was kind of too late. And the effective way to recover the good things about that time period comes with the price of vigilance, and with the price of real open-mindedness and willingness to keep things stable. All that's really hard work, especially when you have to worry about paying the bills, right? And especially when you have to worry about whether or not you're going to have a job next year. But like I said, it's not going to be easy. That's just the price of getting ourselves out of this hole that we're in, is that we'll have to pay attention. Don't get me wrong. I don't like to pay attention. It's not fun. I don't have a good time with it. I just understand that whenever I don't pay attention, everything comes apart. And then I have to start over,
Yeah, it was very much like a calm period before the storm. It was this is something that's been on its way since like the 70s with Sally Miller Gerhardt and so on, where they controlled they started to take control of institutions. This is Mary Koss and stuff like that. But it really did start to become apparent with the Me Too and the politics in America breaking down and stuff like that. But I am not talking about the undercover stuff. I'm talking about the way we seem to be going, which was like further and further towards true equality. It was like everything, like all the cartoons and things like that we were showing the kids and all TV shows, and everything seemed to be like, yeah, let's just get along. The bad guy was in those things was always the person who disrupted the equality. It wasn't somebody who had different ideas. It wasn't a group. It was just like a lone person who was not playing ball, and that person was then usually talked around or shot off a building if it was an American action film. But in sitcoms and Friends and things like that, it was always someone who got talked around towards being a better person, if you get my drift. And then we changed that towards demonization, and it was through feminists infiltrating everything that happened. The problem is that feminist infiltration has always been something that's been ongoing, and that's true right back to the suffragette era. But we need to be ever vigilant against it, because it will happen again. There will be another nice, calm period where everything seems to be getting better, everything seems to be great, and then we'll have another fall into this stuff, because this sort of thing just happens. People get complacent, people get apathetic, the generation that remembers will die away, and the generation that has been brought up on all this equality stuff will give birth to a generation who is essentially co-opted by people with no sense of ethics, no sense of morals, but who have an agenda and who push it quite slowly and subtly, and who are incredibly patient, which is what feminists have been. They've been incredibly patient in all of this, in their incredibly extreme agenda, which started off with things that seemed quite nice and seemed quite friendly, like getting women into work and stuff like that, but has just been a constant push towards more and more extreme realities. I mean, the second wave feminists were they absolutely hated men, but people don't seem to realize this. They think that second generation was a great generation of feminism, and that was like the pinnacle of how good it got, and it was only the third generation of feminism where it started to go really wrong, and the fourth generation where it went holy crap. But people don't seem to realize it's always been in there, and it has always been creeping up and increasing the the temperature of the awfulness that they're trying to pour down our throats. And I don't know if I'm making sense here, but this has just essentially been their undercover plan for the whole time. And I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but we absolutely do have the documents to prove it. If you just read feminist literature, you will see it all the way through it. This is the Mary Daly, this is the Mary Koss, this is all this sort of stuff. These people who are highly influential in their day and who have set us on this course and who have been taken over by others.
Well, I have read probably too much feminist theory and feminist rhetoric, and I know and spend time with a great many feminist people. It has always been easier for me to simply point out the costs of following that line of thinking than to object to the the overall purpose of it. You know, because then I can just say, look, you know, if you really believe in this and this is your holy grail, you know, go get it. Here's the bill, you know, here's what it will cost. And that, you know, and I can say the cost of it is unconditional. I mean, it's inevitable. There is no stopping it. It will happen. You know, and they're like, how do you know? And I'm saying, well, here's what the cost has been up to now, you know, and it happened, right? And if you continue, then these things will continue to be at your cost, and you will face these extra costs afterward, you know. But I am not here to tell you what to do or what's right and wrong. If you think it's a bargain, run with it, you know. Then, like I said, it's, you know, I'm not making a proposal for what I think is is more fair or better or whatever. I'm just saying, look, you know, everything comes at a cost. Everything, any kind of progress causes pain, you know, and it causes deprivation somehow. Sometimes it's necessary and there is no way around it, and the pain and deprivation are inevitable. But some things, you know, some kinds of pain can be avoided, right? And some kinds of suffering and deprivation can be avoided and mediated, you know. But most of the well, for example, feminist theory and correspondingly a lot of, you know, more left-leaning ideological theory. You know, like I said, it's doable, right? You know, it can be done. It's just, is it worth it? You know, because you'll be giving up a great many things that right now maybe you take for granted, you know, and you just think are always going to be there, and they won't, you know. And by the time you realize it, you won't be able to get it back. You know, that's the thing to hammer home, is if you go far enough down that road, you're not allowed to come back. You know, you will be there because you won't be here. Right? And, you know, if here is still livable and can still be improved on, you know, my vote is stay here and make this better. If you go down that road, you will believe you're getting what you want, and you'll end up with nothing. You know, and then it will be too late. No one will be able to help you. No one. You know. And then you'll just have to either die or figure out how to live without those things. And then I just leave it with them. I say, this is you. You know, this is not me, it's not us, it's not the manosphere, it's none of that stuff. This is you. And you will either be wise with it or you will not. You know. And nobody can enact that wisdom for you. You know, it's impossible. It'd be great if I could, but I can't. You know, neither can anybody else. And you know, then you start feeling like you're a parent talking to children, but sometimes that's what the play calls for. You know, don't like it, but you know, with people that have never had those experiences and never been confronted that way before, it does make them stop and listen. You know, and it doesn't make them feel like, you know, like I am telling them what to do or what to think. Right? I am telling them they always have choices, and that there are a great many foolish choices to make, and just a small few intelligent ones. And the intelligent ones, short term, generally more difficult, generally more painful. In the long run, you get to keep what you have, and you get to build on it. Stupid choice feels totally painless in the choosing, but after it's over with, you look back and say, wow, I've lost something I'm never going to have again, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Good conversation. In the beginning, I thought that we may not even have a talk at all, but it actually turned into quite a productive chat. I really enjoyed this one. So same time next week. Hopefully we can get Ari Blaff to come. He is a journalist who is here to learn about the men's rights movement. But I will see you guys, and thank you very much for coming.